Hey everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're gonna give attendees a few more minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes more, because there are still people joining, and we want to give them a chance to, be here from the get-go, basically. And so stay tuned for another minute or two, please. All right, let's get started. Again, welcome to this exciting webinar. Well, in fact, I don't know if it's going to be exciting because I haven't seen the slides yet, but and there they go. There they are back again. Okay, thanks, Patrick. So today's webinar is going to be moderated by me, Michael Kummer, with Xiting. Some of you might know who I am. I've done most of the previous webinars, and the speaker today is going to be Patrick Spitzer from our German office. I let Patrick introduce himself here in a few minutes. Just want to go over some administrative and organizational things to get out of the way. First of all, it's the first time that Patrick and I are doing this webinar together, so not everything might go as smooth as usual, so bear with us, please. The webinar is going to be recorded, so you will receive a link with the recording within 24 hours, usually, either directly from GoToWebinar or I'm going to send you an email anyway. So one way or the other, you'll get a link to recording and you can download it. There is also a questions box as part of your GoToWebinar control panel. So that's usually on your right-hand side. It might be, you might have to expand it, but there is a little question thing with an arrow, and if you click on it, it'll expand. If you don't see the input field, please type in your questions during the webinar. There is no need to wait until the end, even though at the end we will have approximately 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how fast Patrick is going to speak, to answer any questions. So I'll keep monitoring these questions, and if there's anything that I can answer, I'll do it right away. Otherwise, I'll read them out loud at the end, and Patrick will have a chance to answer them. If we don't get through all the questions, no worries. We'll answer all of them offline, and we'll send out an email with all the questions and the answers without your names, obviously. So don't be afraid to ask a stupid question. There are no stupid questions. Just ask whatever you feel like. We're also going to have 3 polling questions throughout the webinar. So whenever the slide says polling, I'm going to start that poll. And please participate. The more people participate, the better the data is going to be. So we'll see, where everyone is at in terms of EDT. So you'll see that here throughout this webinar. And last but not least, we were supposed to go to the SAP Insider Conference next week in Vegas, and that got postponed, as I'm sure you've heard, at least the ones who were supposed to go as well. And we had a couple of educational sessions there, like Google hacking and S/4HANA migration. So what we are considering doing is delivering those sessions next week as webinars. So stay tuned for an announcement email, probably going out later today. So, for those of you who had planned on attending, your calendar should be pretty free for next week. So join our webinar. And with that said, one more thing, there is a handout. Hopefully you can access it. There is a little handouts section in the GoToWebinar control panel, and that contains a copy of the slide deck in PDF format. So if you want to see the slides, just download the PDF and you can look at that. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. If you want to introduce yourself and then take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and welcome from my side. As Michael said, my name is Patrick Spitzer. I am SAP security consultant with focus on enterprise threat detection and our Xiting authorizations management suite here at the German subsidiary. You will probably hear it from my accent. And today I want to talk about enterprise threat detection. And ETD is a very sophisticated and comprehensive tool which enables you to reveal complex attacks. But today we will concentrate on, let's say, lean, efficient, and understandable use cases that you can easily apply to improve your security of your company data. So let's start with some facts about our company if you don't know us yet already. So Xiting was founded in Switzerland in 2008, and in the following years the several subsidiaries in Germany, UK, USA and Romania followed. We have established a partner distribution channel since 2013, so we work closely together with our partners all the time, and currently we have about 75 employees worldwide. And the special thing about our consultants is that they are usually certified SAP trainers. Yeah, we are specialized on SAP security, where we offer consulting and our own software, the Xiting authorizations management suite. And as you can see, we are certified SAP partner in multiple areas. But that's enough about Xiting. Let's talk about enterprise threat detection. And first, I want to go over some questions. So the first question is, why did SAP decide to build enterprise threat detection? Two essential factors were relevant here. First, the customer feedback, and secondly, the technical innovations. Many customers see their SAP systems as a, let's say, black box regarding critical events and suspicious behavior. I mean, you can minimize the risk with a good authorization and security concept, but you still won't get alerted if vulnerabilities get exploited. So if no one actively checks the logs in your SAP systems, you're kind of blind. And our experience shows that logs are often either not checked or only checked iteratively. For example, a weekly or monthly check for critical events in the security audit log is done. Furthermore, the development of the SAP HANA in-memory database was the leverage technology for many use cases, like real-time analysis of big data. So now it is no problem to analyze log data of your whole system landscape in real time without caring about performance issues. To sum it all up in just one sentence, SAP developed ETD to provide extensive insights into your SAP system landscape in real time. So the second question I want to answer is, what is enterprise threat detection? Now, ETD is a security event management and monitoring solution which helps you to detect and analyze cyber attacks, critical events, and anomalies. You can monitor the events in your whole system landscape in real time so that you have the chance to react before damage is done. And the key questions that ETD wants to answer are, how can I keep track of who is attacking me? What actions can I take to neutralize attacks? How do you know what end-to-end action took place? How do I find anomalies in my landscape systems? And how do I know what damage has been made in my system? So the last question that I want to answer, basic question, is why is ETD even needed? So for one thing, we have a rising number of internal and external attacks. And this doesn't have to be a sophisticated hack or economic espionage or something like that. This might as well be an employee with too comprehensive authorizations who gives away sensitive data. Furthermore, we had technical difficulties. There was no tool which gave comparable transparency and insights to your SAP systems in real time. And of course, this is also a big data issue if you regard how many logs and events are produced at your SAP systems, if you regard the whole landscape. Last but not least, you have to consider the compliance of your company. There are always new and stricter regulations and requirements regarding your data and IT security. So you must take care of prevention mechanisms, for example, with authorizations and for detection mechanisms. Otherwise, it is really hard to prove that vulnerabilities won't get exploited. And these aspects you have to keep in mind if you want to secure your intellectual property and sensitive data, if you want to preserve your good reputation, and if you want to avoid penalties and sanctions. And with that being said, I would like to start the first poll from Michael.
All right, so let's launch that poll here. And the question is, what issues would you address with SAP EDT first? Assuming you already have it or you're planning on using it. So give us your input, please. We have about, let's see, about 20% of people voted so far. Let's see if that goes up here a little bit before we close the poll and show the results. All right, so we have about 49.53 now % voted. I'm gonna close the poll and share the results. And it seems like the winner is external cyber attacks with 75%. And you'll get an email with those statistics as well in case you're interested in. All right.
Okay, that's interesting. External cyber attacks. Then, okay, we have a look at the key features. If that meets your requirements, we just had a look at the fundamental questions. Now I want to take, let's say, more technical and a more in-depth look at the key features. So first, we have the collection of log data and context information. That means all security-related events and information are collected from your whole SAP system landscape, and they are saved in one single database where it is enriched with contextual information. A semantic data model gets built up, which means you won't have to operate on the plain log text, on the strings. So every log entry will have a meaning and is understandable. For example, you can easily filter for every user login. It is also very important to mention that user data gets pseudonymized. We will see that later. And that means ETD administrator cannot just check what their co-workers are currently doing, since they don't know their ETD pseudonym. So you can't just surveil every person in your system landscape. Events and alerts can be monitored in real time. That means that you also immediately get alerted as soon as something suspicious happens, whereupon you can start an investigation about that incident. One of the biggest strengths, I would say, of ETD is that you can define for yourself when and why an alert gets triggered. So you are able to freely build your own patterns, which enables you to automatically detect attacks. For example, if somebody takes a look at, let's say, a critical database table, an alert is immediately triggered. And those detection patterns run periodically or event-driven, which can also be freely defined. So you won't rely on predefined rules or patterns. You can customize and optimize them to fit your needs or your company's needs. And the last important feature is the log management. That means you are able to preserve your logs in different storage types, for example, a hot, warm, and cold storage, and you are able to forward ETD alarms to leading SIEM systems with the result that ETD gets seamlessly integrated with such systems. Speaking of SIEM systems, so for those who maybe haven't heard of it or don't know, SIEM systems are security information and event management systems. And a lot of customers ask me why they even need ETD, because they already have such a SIEM system in place. The problem is that SAP systems are rarely connected to such SIEM systems, even though the most important data is saved in the SAP systems. That is, on the one hand, because of technical difficulties. That means that SIEM systems don't have good interfaces or connectors for SAP, and because you must connect and correlate multiple logs to get meaningful results. So there is not a, let's say, single master log file for all your SAP systems. Additionally, you get a profound know-how from SAP and a customized solution for the SAP ecosystem. And in summary, like depicted at the bottom of the slide, it can be said that the focus of SIEM systems is at the infrastructure level, for example, router or firewall logs. This is where classical SIEM systems like Splunk, for example, are strong and are probably better than ETD. But in the SAP ecosystem, it is the other way around. So let's talk about some standard use cases that we constantly implement and that customers have as requirement. Of course, I'm not going to talk about all those use cases. This is rather just a short overview. One use case that appear all the time is the assignment of critical profiles and roles. The simplest example is the assignment of SAP All on productive systems. Another standard is the change of the system configuration. For example, we have customers that check if their profile parameters are correctly adjusted with the help of the security architect from our Xiting authorizations management suite. And then on top of that, surveil with the help of ETD if somebody changes their correctly adjusted profile parameters with, let's say, bad intentions. And a lot of time we monitor company data or customer identifying data, for example, if they are downloaded, manipulated, or just viewed. And we also often monitor the login behavior of users. A few other use cases. SAP delivers multiple hacking detection patterns to, like the recognition of denial of service attacks. Your interfaces and RFC calls can be monitored. And SAP also delivers patterns which concentrate on the exploitation of known vulnerabilities. So if you haven't patched them yet, for example, because of internal regulations or fixed patch days, you can at least monitor them with ETD, which is also sometimes called virtual patching. Now I'm talking about logs all the time, and you have to ask yourself the question, how can all these events be recognized? Well, As described, everything is documented in the SAP logs. You just have to evaluate them. By default, ETD supports SAP NetWeaver ABAP, SAP NetWeaver Java, the HANA database, and the cloud platform. Not every single log on every platform is supported, as you can see, because they started with what they think were the most security relevant first, and then began to enhance it. You can also see that there's a focus on ABAP systems. There we have, for example, the security audit log, the read access log, which enables you to log extremely customizable use cases, or the gateway log, which enables you to monitor your system interfaces. Good. Finally, another poll before we start into a live demonstration. So Michael, would you be so kind?
All right, the second one is, do you actively and frequently monitor your SAP systems for suspicious events? That's going to be an interesting one. All right, we got 56% of the vote, so let's close it and show the results. And so it seems like manual is the number one, followed by no. So there are only very few, only 16% do it using a CM system.
Oh, okay. Now that is a lot of manual work. We will have a look now in a live demonstration how this could be done with ETD. Now, as I said before, ETD is a monitoring solution for real-time events. So as boring as this might seem, you have to watch me working in the system so that we can produce some logs. So I'm going to log in here at a SAP system, at a SAP GUI, and I'm now starting to produce logs while I'm working. So let's imagine following scenario. I know that there's this exciting employee that recently left the company, and I know that his account was locked because he left the company. So since I am a user administrator with 2 comprehensive rights, I'm going to unlock the user. I'm going to give him a password so that I know his credentials. And finally, I'm giving him SAP all authorizations, save it, and then log in with another user. I know this is not a sophisticated scenario, and I am currently doing nothing to cover up my tracks, but that is not what this webinar today is about. I want to show you some simple use cases and how you can handle them with ETD. So next up, I'm having this account, which was previously assigned to another real person and not to me. And I'm now looking at some critical data, for example, the USR02. You can insert there any other critical, for example, business relevant table. This doesn't matter for ETD. We will see that in a minute. I'll execute it, and since I have sub all, I can see the complete user data, and of course I can also download this data, and I'm now having all user data locally with all the hashed passwords, which I can happily encrypt now and log off and cover up my tracks. But that's enough from the SAP GUI. We want to talk about ETD today. And just have to log, okay, my session ended. I just logged in again with my demo user. Okay, now we created some logs in the system, and we can now jump right into Enterprise Threat Detection. Enterprise Threat Detection runs directly on SAP HANA. That means you don't have a NetWeaver server in between, and you don't have SAP GUI. You have your Fiori or ETD launchpad in this case. So you have your launchpad with all those different tiles and different applications that you can start. I'm not going to show you all those applications. I want to concentrate on the most relevant ones. And one of the most relevant ones is the Forensic Lab. The Forensic Lab is here to do digital forensics and to build patterns. Most of the participants of my workshops are, let's say, a bit overwhelmed about all those pie charts and numbers and settings that you have here. But I try to make it as easy as possible for you to understand the Forensic Lab. So this is a split screen, as you can see here. On the left-hand side, you have your forensic workspace. And in this forensic workspace, you can filter down all the events that were recorded or collected by ETD. So I'm currently looking at the events from the last 15 minutes. I can change that to whatever value I want or to a fixed time range. Okay, I'm changing it to 30 minutes just for example, and you see that there were 4,400 events in the last 30 minutes. What I can do now is I can drill down those events, I can filter those events. Maybe you can see it as a graphical query language, for example. On the right-hand side, I see the details of the data that I have selected on the left-hand side, okay? So in summary, I have those 4,000 events, and I see here now that they were partly from S4H client 0 and partly from S4H client 100, that they were different log sources, for example, from business transaction log or the user change log, and that those events were translated to different semantic events. And this is what I was talking about. You clearly see the semantics of these events. They are always translated. For example, a user admin unlocked a user, or a web service was called, a user has logged on, and so on and so forth. And since this is a real-time solution, there are always new results coming in whenever I click the refresh button. And you can always filter for new stuff. There are tons of filters. For example, you can look at what transactions were executed, or what I'm going to use next, you can look at which resource types were requested. So what I want to do next, that you see how the forensic workspace works, is I want to build a small pattern. So I want to look for database table access. That's what I'm going to build now. So if I want to look for database table access, I have to first filter those events for a certain resource type, which is, of course, database tables. So it doesn't matter to me whenever a file was accessed or bytes were transferred or something else, the database tables matter to me. So I add them to the path. And as you can see, those events are drilled down from 4,000 to 2 events. Now we have every database table access. That's not really meaningful at the moment, so I have to filter them a little bit more. And not only for the resource type, but I'm also going to filter them for the resource name, because I want to filter for critical database tables. Of course, I could enter here the resource name equals USR02, but I'm going to show you another feature. The feature is value lists, and here I can enter a list of values. Luckily, SAP also already delivers a value list for critical database tables. So I am going to use the SAP standard. And I have the next filter implemented for my pattern. So what is behind those value lists that I just selected? Nothing fancy here. As the name says, it's just a list of values that was delivered by SAPs. And these value lists, you can enhance them for yourself. So you can add a custom value. And that is the good thing here. You can customize them for your company. So if, for example, I build a pattern for you for critical database tables, I can implement a value list and you give me, for example, 50 database tables that are relevant for you. And the only thing that I have to do, or that you have to do later on, is to extend a value list. So this is also valid for more tables. But this is just a concrete example. You can use value lists in many different ways. So what I have done now is only filter down my events and my data. Now I have to tell ETD that a pattern should be built and should be run. So what I can do now with this path is to create a pattern so that this behavior gets automatically detected. I can, of course, give the pattern a name so that I can identify it later. For example, access to a critical database table. I can set it to active, of course. The execution output, I can choose between an indicator and an alert. Let's say an indicator is a mitigated alert. So as the name says, it just indicates something. You can choose a threshold and you can group your results. So with the path, you chose what the y-axis should be. Now you have to define your x-axis. So I give the result a bit more meaning. Let's put it like that. I'm going to group my events via the system ID. I'm going to group it via the user pseudonym. And I'm going to group it by the resource name, and you're going to see what I did now in a second. So all those events, in this case, those were just two, are now correctly grouped via system, via the user pseudonym, and via the resource. Because otherwise, every event would throw an alert. So this is the thing that you have to do with patterns. You have to refine them, and you have to eliminate false positives. Then for the execution, you can schedule an execution, for example, every 2 minutes, or you can trigger them whenever a defined event happens. Last but not least, to define a pattern, you can assess the pattern so that a processor later on has it a bit more easier. For example, you can define the alert severity, you can find the credibility or the success of an attack. And that's already everything that I have to do to build a pattern which checks the access to critical database table. And this is also a pattern which is enhanceable. So what is the output of such a pattern? The output is an alert. And how can I check such an alert? You can do that in ETD with the alert monitor. We can have a look at all open alerts from the last day right now. And since this is a test system, I just have to use a filter for my pattern namespace that you see only my pattern executions. And there you have it. 3 alerts were triggered exactly at this time. Don't be confused. This is the German time. It's now 7:26 p.m. or 24 p.m. when this was triggered. And you can see that 3 patterns, 3 alerts were triggered. Now, why is that? That is because I built some other patterns prior to the webinar, so that you see a bit more results and not only one pattern. For example, I built a pattern user acts under created or under previously unlocked user. So it really checks if one host name uses 2 users and unlocks a user or creates a new user. And this really goes down to the host name and to the IP address. Now, this is the pattern that we have built, the access to critical database tables. And I also built a, let's say, more fine granular one, which also checks for the download of a critical database table. And everything was detected in the last few minutes. So what do I have to do with these alerts right now? ETD is also a event management solution, so you can manage your critical events. I can go now to the unique identifier of the alert and have a look at the detailed data. And now I can start an investigation with this alert to, as the name says, investigate this alert. So I can say, for example, the description of the investigation is access to use R02, severity is high. Then you can assign to a processor. I'm going to assign it to me. Status is in process. An attack is suspected. Is it relevant for the management? Should there be any management visibility? Okay, for information maybe. And now I'm going to say add and return. So now an investigation was opened. Why did I click add and return? Because this is no one-to-one relation, okay? You can add multiple alerts to one investigation. So normally you would have a look at the other alerts and analyze if they are maybe related. Since I built those alerts, I don't have to analyze them. I can just add it to the investigation because I know that they are related. So I can check those alerts and say add to investigation. Then I choose here my previously created investigation and add them. And now you see what an investigation looks like. On an investigation, several processors can work. For example, here's a discussion tab where you can document what you have done on this investigation. For example, initial investigation started by Patrick. And you can add some screenshots, for example, save it. Here you see the different alerts that were assigned to the investigation, and you can also add some attachment, for example, PDFs, security guidelines, and so on. And everything that you do in this system gets recorded. Now, if I am finished with analyzing what I have done here, I can set the status to completed. An attack was recognized, and save it, and then the investigation is closed. I can only reopen it. The only thing that is left right now, I have to analyze which user did the attack. As you can see, only pseudonyms were recorded, so I have to resolve the user identity, and this is the last app I'm going to show you here, the resolve user identity application. It's really simple. You put in the user pseudonym, click on resolve, and you see here that the Xiting employee had access to the data. And also everything that you do here gets logged. So every resolve process gets logged. Okay, let's go back to our slides. At this point, maybe I want to emphasize again that what we have done now in a quick way is valid for every SAP system that is connected to ETD. So it wouldn't matter on which system a user is looking at a table. And this centralization is making the usage of the solution so efficient. And now that we have seen ETD in action and have seen how working in SAP system produces logs and how they can be evaluated shortly after, it is easier to look at it from a technical perspective. So the logs are processed in mainly 3 stages. At first, the logs and the context information are generated and extracted from the connected SAP and non-SAP systems. In the next step, SAP HANA Streaming Analytics takes care of the normalization and the pseudonymization of log data. And the final stage is SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. That's where I just worked in with the underlying HANA database. Now, as previously explained, and as some of you also voted, customers sometimes have CM systems in place and don't want to actively take care of 2 solutions. It is also often the case that the already used CM system is defined as the leading system. The good thing is that is possible without problems. You are able to integrate ETD into a leading CM system like Splunk, QRadar, or ArcSight by pushing, ETD alerts to their REST interfaces. And there's also a REST interface for pulling alerts too. So leading systems can, for example, periodically query the interface for new alerts. That's it from a technical viewpoint from my side. Now I want to take a look at the topic from a service perspective. Since there's often no concrete idea how a project or a quick start project could look like, basically every project is customized individually for you, but we also have some, let's say, quick start predefined services to simplify and accelerate the entry into the ETD ecosystem. For example, with the introduction of a basic alarm system. This enables you to monitor who had a look at which data. I mean, as already said, the most important data of a company has to be protected, like financial data or engineering plans. And the question is, do you know at the moment who has had an unauthorized look at this data or even downloaded it? And if you don't know that, how can you protect yourself against attacks? As already shown in the demonstration with ETD, it is really easy to monitor such scenarios and alert the responsible persons in case of an unauthorized access. The fundamental patterns for that are delivered by SAP, and we can customize them to fit your needs and to eliminate false positives. And the good thing is patterns from SAP are regularly updated independent of the software release cycle. Therefore, you have a simple and tailor-made quick start scenario which protects your most important company data. And from this position on, you can enhance the ETD scope iteratively to cover new scenarios. So how or what does a project like that look like? Of course, we start with a kickoff workshop where we present the ETD solution in detail, the delivery approach and the coordination of the project and the systems to be analyzed. Thereupon, the installation and configuration of the various ETD components follows, either on-premise or with the help of a hosting partner. Subsequently, we configure ETD to record log events, detect attacks, and alert ABAP-based security events. We also customize the default ETD patterns so that they are tailor-made for your company. A best practice workshop is done to transfer our ETD knowledge to you. And in the end, we create a roadmap for the preparation of a comprehensive implementation of ETD. So your benefit is that you have extremely fast analysis results based on Xiting and SAP best practice knowledge, and you see the added value of ETD on the basis of your company data. So the last poll that Michael can start right now.
All right, the last one is, have you established a predefined process for handling threats and attacks on your SAP system? Let's see if anyone is still awake. Yep, and we got about 50%, 55% voted. Let's give it a few seconds. We got good data.
It's a lot of people who didn't fall asleep. That's good.
Well, that's a good sign. All right, let's close the poll and show the results. So most have not, it looks like.
Okay, that's also what we experience. Yeah. Okay, let's maybe have a look at the services that we offer as Xiting in general. So apart from those predefined scenarios, we currently have specialized on services. That means the red parts on the shown slide, and not on hosting. So we are not a hoster. On the one hand, those are the operational services, which include consulting regarding the installation, the architecture, the sizing of the hardware, and how the solution should be configured and customized. Additionally, we help you with the integration of non-SAP log sources and SIEM systems. On the other hand, we have concentrated on security services. So we offer consulting regarding typical ETD use cases and how you can improve your SAP cybersecurity. We help you with the development of patterns or with the implementation of patterns and the security event monitoring. That means we also train how you operate ETD and how you can use obtained information. We show you how you handle alerts, do digital forensics with ETDs, or how you build up a security operational plan. Okay, then let me sum up everything now with the advantages and the highlights. So only with ETD you can recognize and analyze threats in real time, which concentrate on SAP software. That's something which is often neglected, even though the most important company data is saved there. Of course, you could also integrate SAP logs into SIEM systems directly, but often this costs a lot of effort, since various events are only recognizable if you correlate multiple logs and multiple log sources. That leads us to the next advantage. The various logs are correlated and are therefore a bit more meaningful. So you don't only have, for example, the security audit log entries, which are the most known ones. You have various logs from your whole SAP landscape, which enables you to monitor, let's say, more complex scenarios like RFC hopping. So you see if somebody hops from one RFC destination to another, and then in the end lands at your HR system. And the data can efficiently be analyzed with the help of the underlying SAP HANA in-memory database, so that pattern executions only take a few seconds. The attacks and the suspicious behavior can be detected automatically, and you don't have to do a proactive search by yourself. So you will get informed either directly from ETD or from your leading SIEM system. But if you do want a proactive search, if you do want to do that for attacks, or you want to do digital forensics, SAP delivers a very powerful tool with the Forensic Lab. And with this tool, you can monitor easily and efficiently all events and interfaces from your whole SAP system landscape from one consistent user interface. You have one single source where your data is stored. Okay, so I've come to an end with my presentation, but we also have time for questions and discussions.
All right, so the first question that we have here is, in your experience, who do you see as the end user for ETD? Who consumes this information? Is it the SOC, security teams, control teams, SAP Center of Excellence? Who is using that stuff?
Normally in bigger companies, it's the SOC, the Security Operations Center, which in bigger companies is already available because they often have a CM system, for example, in place, and they have built up the infrastructure and for a Security Operations Center. In smaller companies, this use case we have more often in last time than the SAP administrators care about alerts in ETD. So the basis team.
Okay. And then the next one is, do you consider Splunk a CM system?
I would consider Splunk as a CM system, and we also have Splunk connectors for ETD. So there's a available Splunk connector since the newest version of ETD, which makes it much more easy to connect ETD to Splunk.
Okay, and then the next one is, does ETD pull log data from GRC, IAG, Ariba, IBP, and SAC?
From Ariba, I don't think so. What really matters is the platform on which the SAP system is run. I can just open the slide again for your answer. So these are the platforms that can be integrated. So if your solutions run on one of that platforms, for example, the NetWeaver ABAP, then they can be implemented. Then they can be connected. So this is the relevant slide if you ask yourself if such solutions can be connected.
Okay, and would fall Ariba into the SAP Cloud Platform, or is it a different thing?
I don't know exactly. I have to look that up, but I don't think it runs in the SAP Cloud Platform, to be honest.
Okay.
I haven't connected it yet, so I have to look it up.
Okay. All right, and I think that was it. I don't see any more questions unless there are any more. If so, type them in, please. If we don't see anything more here in the next few seconds, we'll give you, looks like 5 minutes of your day back, which is okay as well. And again, you'll get a recording of the session. You can download the slide deck from the handout section. If that didn't work for whatever reason, I can include it as well in the follow-up email. And then we have not a question, but more a comment. Thank you, great session. So thank you, Patrick. Thank you all for attending, for spending an hour with us. Much appreciated. And if there is anything else, just shoot us an email and we'll take care of you. Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.